Are you ready for a jaw-dropping story that could rival a Hollywood blockbuster? Imagine a nation-state behind one of the most massive bank heists in history, almost nabbing a staggering $1 billion. But that's not all. This same state also spearheaded some of the most infamous cyber attacks in recent years, such as the Sony Pictures hack. It might sound too wild to be true, but it is. In this video, we'll uncover the gripping tale of how North Korea nearly succeeded in a $1 billion bank hack. February 7, 2016 was a day that won't be forgotten at the Bangladesh Central Bank. The director himself had to make a personal visit to the most restricted part of the building, the accounts and budgeting department, to tackle a pressing issue. The printer, a crucial component of the bank's operations, had been down for days, causing major headaches and chaos. As the automated printer was designed to work non-stop 24/7, printing out transaction reports in real time, this was a serious problem. It all started with a simple technical glitch, an empty printer tray. Little did the Bangladesh Central Bank's team know that this would uncover a massive scandal. Hours were spent fixing the issue, and eventually the printer was restarted. But as transaction reports started rolling out, it became clear that something was amiss. A closer look revealed 35 suspicious payment orders for exorbitant amounts of money, allegedly transferred from the bank's own account to accounts in other countries. The Bangladesh Central Bank's SWIFT security system was thought to be unbreachable, until one day when an innocuous printer malfunction triggered a catastrophic chain of events. As the director examined the suspicious transfer requests, the sheer scale of the fraud became apparent. Almost $1 billion had been stolen from the nation's reserves, a devastating blow. Panic set in as the team tried to halt the transfers, but it was too late. The delay caused by the printer issue had given the hackers time to escape with the funds. How did they manage to pull off such a heist? The devastating cyber attack on the Bangladesh Central Bank in February 2016 was not a sudden event. It was the result of a meticulously planned heist that began 9 months earlier over 3,000 kilometers away in the Philippines. In May 2015, a group of men opened 4 bank accounts at the Jupiter Street branch of RCBC Bank with just $500 and then disappeared without a trace. Little did anyone know, these seemingly abandoned accounts would play a critical role in one of the largest bank robberies in history. As Bangladesh's economy boomed and its central bank flourished, the nation could not afford to lose $1 billion of taxpayer money. But by January 2016, the stage was set for a devastating attack that would rock the world of finance. It all started with a routine email check by an employee at the Bangladesh Bank. Little did he know that he had inadvertently opened the door to one of the largest bank heists in history. Unbeknownst to him, the email contained a malicious program that began installing itself in the bank's computer systems, allowing hackers to enter undetected. With access to the inner workings of the bank, the attackers bided their time, spying on workers and studying the bank's operational procedures. Finally, a month later on a Thursday evening, as the bank was preparing to close for the weekend, the hackers struck, stealing almost $1 billion. The intruders had breached the system once more, but this time it was the ultimate goal. Yet, manipulating international money transfers was a whole new ballgame. SWIFT, a well-known global payment network, ensured that financial transactions were transmitted in a secure and reliable manner, with military-grade security that was supposed to be impenetrable. To be precise, SWIFT did not transfer actual funds, but rather transmitted trusted payment orders between accounts, which were then executed by the banks. This was the norm in international banking, and that's why the hackers in this case targeted the institution itself rather than the individual bank account holders. Instead of stealing login credentials, they used the bank's legitimate SWIFT credentials that they had collected from the malware to take control of the SWIFT terminals, essentially posing as legitimate bank employees. While SWIFT itself is safe and secure, individual banks must also be responsible for their own cybersecurity measures. If their security is lacking, as is often the case with developing nations, SWIFT can become a tool for malicious actors to exploit. And that's exactly what happened. The hackers successfully sent 35 fraudulent transfer requests, amounting to $951 million, through the SWIFT system to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. But why target New York? The Bangladesh Bank had an account with billions of dollars on deposit there, intended for international settlements. The transfer requests instructed the funds to be moved from New York to various accounts set up across Asia. And just like that, the hackers were finished. They had accomplished their mission in a matter of hours. The next day, which was a Friday, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York began processing the supposed payment orders from Bangladesh. Keep in mind that New York City is one of the world's largest financial centers. The Fed is renowned for its security and initially had no reason to suspect any foul play. After all, SWIFT instructions are legitimate and trusted. So, unaware of the deception, they began processing the transfer requests from Bangladesh. Meanwhile, back in Bangladesh, on Sunday morning, the employees at the central bank were trying to fix their printer problem. The automated printer that was connected to the SWIFT network had not been working for the last few days, which meant that the usual printouts of real-time transfer confirmations were backlogged. Unfortunately, this was the worst possible time for a technical glitch, but in reality, it wasn't a technical glitch at all. The hackers had taken additional steps to conceal their theft by wiping out evidence from the SWIFT database and intentionally crashing the automated printer, preventing confirmation messages from revealing their activities. This delay bought the hackers some much-needed time. In the meantime, in Sri Lanka, $20 million was transferred to a Pan-Asia bank account belonging to a company called the Shalika Foundation, sent from the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. This was just one of the 35 transfers that were on their way to various accounts across Asia. In Bangladesh, the workers had finally fixed the printer and were sorting through the transfer requests. Panic set in as they realized that 35 payment orders had been made, totaling almost $1 billion. They acted quickly, attempting to send a stop payment order to the New York Fed, but it was Sunday and no one was available to respond. However, it turned out that they were fortunate in a way, as the automated system in New York had flagged 30 of the transactions for manual review. As it happened, one of the words on the SWIFT order matched the name of a shipping company that had been blacklisted for evading U.S. sanctions against Iran. This coincidence proved to be catastrophic for the hackers, as $870 million worth of transfers were blocked. Later, upon closer inspection, staff noticed several red flags, an unusually high number of payment instructions, large transfers to private entities rather than banks, and an incredibly large total. At this point, they had to seek clarification from Bangladesh. After receiving word of the stop payment order, the transfers were halted, and it seemed as though the gig was up. However, there were still 5 transactions that had slipped through the cracks, totaling $101 million. The Fed's automated system had failed to detect these transfers, so the question remained, where had this money ended up? The initial transfer was made to Sri Lanka, totaling $20 million, and it was routed through Deutsche Bank to reach an account at Pan-Asia Bank. The intended recipient was a Sri Lankan non-profit organization known as the Shalika Foundation. However, an observant employee at Pan-Asia Bank raised concerns about the unusually large sum of money being sent to a small NGO in Sri Lanka. Consequently, the employees sent the transaction back to Deutsche Bank for verification. The payment order was then reviewed in Frankfurt, Germany, where similar red flags were raised as in New York, including a misspelling of the word foundation as fandation. It was later confirmed that the suspicions about the Shalika Foundation were true, and that the company was, in fact, fake. As a result, the funds were returned to the Bangladesh bank's New York account, leaving $81 million still in question. Interestingly enough, all 4 of these transactions were sent to the same branch of the same bank in the Philippines, specifically the Jupiter Street branch of the RCBC Bank. The accounts at this branch had been inactive for 9 months, each with only $500 in them, until they suddenly received a massive influx of $81 million. While this sudden activity should have raised concerns at RCBC, it somehow went unnoticed. Subsequently, it was discovered that the accounts were created under false names. The funds were then withdrawn and laundered through casinos where electronic transfers were converted into untraceable cash. Although the Bangladesh bank attempted to halt the transfers, their efforts were unsuccessful due to the unfortunate timing. The stop order was expected to be received by RCBC Bank on a Monday, but due to the Chinese New Year holiday, the order was not received until later. It's worth noting that each step of the process experienced delays that ultimately benefited the hackers, indicating a deliberate strategy on their part. The timing of the attack was remarkably well planned. The hackers gained access to the system on a Thursday evening, just as the Bangladesh weekend began and the bank was closing. The following day, the New York Fed attempted to verify the requests with Bangladesh but were unable to reach anyone as it was their weekend. When Bangladesh staff returned to work on Sunday, they were unable to reach New York due to the weekend in the US. Finally, on Monday, the Fed received the orders to stop the transfers, but this didn't apply to the Philippines due to the Chinese New Year holiday. It wasn't until 5 days after the heist, on Tuesday, that RCBC staff discovered the fraudulent transfers. Unfortunately, by this time, it was too late to stop the transfers. The investigation eventually found that 2 Chinese men, Ding and Gao, were responsible for creating fake RCBC accounts in the Philippines. The 2 Chinese men were revealed to be middlemen in the operation, yet their role was still critical to the success of the heist. Investigators were hoping that by questioning them they could uncover the true masterminds behind the scheme. Unfortunately, before Bangladeshi authorities could apprehend them, the men had already left the country, boarding flights to Macau, a special administrative region of China where they could no longer be traced. In the end, the hackers were able to obtain $81 million from the 4 remaining transfers, which, while not the original sum, was still significant enough to qualify as the largest bank heist in history, according to some metrics. Despite the attackers' attempt to erase evidence from the bank's systems, cybersecurity experts were still able to analyze the malware used in the attack. Upon analyzing the malware used in the Bangladeshi bank heist, cybersecurity experts discovered similarities in techniques and tools with many other cyber attacks on financial institutions worldwide. This led them to conclude that the same group, known as Lazarus, was likely behind several global attacks. However, upon further investigation, experts made an even more surprising discovery. Server logs from recent attacks revealed an IP address that linked Lazarus to a specific nation-state. In a rare failure to cover their tracks, the logs showed that the attack servers used by Lazarus had been accessed at least once from a North Korean IP address. The computer code also contained Korean language elements. While it is possible that the attackers planted false evidence to frame North Korea, most cybersecurity experts believe that North Korea was indeed responsible for the attacks. Furthermore, it was not limited to attacks on financial institutions, as they were also involved in numerous cyber terrorism and cyber espionage campaigns targeting the South Korean government and infrastructure. The 2014 Sony Pictures hack, one of the largest corporate breaches ever recorded, was also attributed to them. The release of the film The Interview greatly angered Lazarus, who took offense to its plot involving the assassination of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un by the CIA. Cinemas across the United States were threatened with terrorism. The film was not removed from circulation. North Korea, however, denied any involvement, but the activities of the Lazarus group suggest that they were actively targeting the state's known adversaries. When it comes to their attacks on banks, such as the Bangladesh bank heist, the hacking was only the beginning. They also had to ensure that the stolen money was delivered to its intended destination. The stolen funds were moved through places like Macau, which is known to be North Korea's financial point of contact with the outside world, to ensure that the money would get to the intended location. The Bangladesh funds ended up there, as revealed by the 2 Chinese middlemen. From Macau, it wouldn't have been difficult for the money to be wired directly to Pyongyang. The proceeds likely went towards advancing North Korea's nuclear program, funding the lifestyles of the elite, and supporting their economy. If these allegations are true and North Korea is responsible for these attacks, it could have significant international implications. This would mark the first known instance of a nation-state conducting bank robberies. This raises the possibility that they could extend their cyber attacks to political campaigns, weapons systems, civilian bank accounts, or even the accounts of individuals who create content that North Korea finds unfavorable, including those on YouTube. With that said, thank you for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. And if you found this content helpful, give the video a like. See you in the next video. Till then, take care.